The alarm bells rang across the Galactic Council headquarters. Ambassador felt his scales tighten with fear as another red marker appeared on the star map. That made 12 systems lost to the then swarm in just 3 months. How many ships did we lose this time? He asked quietly. The military coordinator, a tall alien named N, checked his data pad. His 4 eyes blinked slowly. 230 vessels. Another million civilians didn't make it out in time. Sat down heavily in his chair. The council had been at peace for 300 years. Small conflicts happened, yes, but nothing like this. The swarm didn't negotiate. They didn't want resources or territory in the usual sense. They just consumed everything in their path and moved on to the next system. What about the Fifth Fleet? Asked, though he already knew the answer. Destroyed. Admiral On managed to evacuate most of the civilians before his ships were overwhelmed. He went down with his flagship. N's voice was flat, emotionless. Too many officers had died already. There was no energy left for grief. The council chamber filled slowly over the next hour. Representatives from 40 different species gathered to discuss their options. None of them were good. They had already committed every military vessel they possessed. They sent their entire defense fleet. Even the peaceful had armed their trading ships and sent them to fight. It wasn't enough. The swarm kept coming. We need more ships, said Council Member Kirsha. She was young for a barely 200 years old. More soldiers, more time. We don't have time, N replied. At their current speed, the swarm will reach the core worlds in 6 months, maybe less. The room fell silent. The core worlds held trillions of citizens. Losing them would mean the end of the Galactic Council as they knew it. What about the reserve fleets? Someone asked. Already deployed. We have nothing left to send. Looked at the star map again. His eyes fell on a small yellow marker at the edge of known space. Earth. The human. They had discovered it only 5 years ago during a routine survey mission. The memory made uncomfortable. The survey team had been terrified by what they found. Earth was a class 12. Almost everything on the planet could kill you. Extreme weather, dangerous animals, toxic plants, and natural disasters that happened with alarming frequency. And yet, humans thrived there. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was that humans fought each other constantly. They had wars, conflicts, and violence on a scale that shocked the peaceful council. The survey team recommended immediate quarantine. Humans were classified as too primitive and too dangerous for contact. Now, 5 years later, was desperate enough to reconsider that decision. What about the humans? He said quietly. The room went silent. Several council members looked at him like he had gone mad. The Kirsha said slowly, "You want to ask the primitives for help. They have achieved faster than light travel," pointed out. "They have ships. They have weapons. Most importantly, they have experience with warfare, experience with killing each other," and muttered. "That's different from organized military operations." Is it? Stood up and pointed at the star map. "We've been running defensive operations for 3 months. We're losing. Maybe we need someone who thinks differently about combat." The debate lasted for hours. Some council members refused to even consider it. Others were cautiously interested. In the end, desperation won out. They would contact Earth and ask for military assistance. The message was sent the next day. Personally composed it, trying to make it sound both respectful and urgent. He offered technology sharing, resources, and most importantly, a seat on the Galactic Council if humanity would send military aid. He expected the humans to refuse, or perhaps to send a small token force to gain favor. What he didn't expect was the response that came back 3 days later. Captain Jake sat in his quarters aboard the S Valiant when the message arrived. He was a career military officer, 42 years old, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. He had fought in 3 different conflicts during his 20-year service and earned his command through skill and determination. The message from the Galactic Council was marked as highest priority. Jake read it twice, then called his first officer. Commander Ben Hayes arrived within minutes. He was younger than Jake, only 35, but he had earned his position through excellent tactical thinking. "Sir, did you see the message from the aliens?" "Yeah, I saw it." Jake pulled up the star map on his screen. "They're getting crushed by something called the Then Swarm. Want our help?" Ben leaned over to look at the data. "That's a lot of lost systems in a short time. They must be desperate to ask us. Last I heard, they had us under quarantine. Too dangerous for civilized society," Jake said with a slight smile. "But apparently fine when they need someone who knows how to fight." "Are we going to respond?" Jake thought about it for a moment. The human government had been trying to make contact with the Galactic Council for 5 years. Every attempt was ignored or rejected. Now suddenly they wanted help. "Forward this to command. Let the admirals decide." He paused. "But tell them I volunteer if they approve it. The Valiant is ready to deploy." Ben nodded and left to send the message. The response from Earth's military command came faster than Jake expected. 48 hours after receiving the alien message, Admiral Lisa gave the order. Earth would send an expeditionary force to help the Galactic Council. Waited anxiously for the human response. When it came, he felt relief wash over him. The humans had agreed to help. They would send ships to assist in the defense against the swarm. He immediately began preparing assignments for the human vessels. They would probably send a few hundred volunteers at most, he thought. Perhaps a dozen ships if Earth was feeling generous. He could use them to evacuate civilians or guard low-priority systems. It would free up Council forces for the front lines. N was already working on logistics. "We'll need to assign them support vessels. Human ships probably can't interface with our supply networks. And we'll need translators, training officers, tactical coordinators. Keep it simple, advised. Give them clear objectives and let them do what they do best. Which is what exactly? Paused. He wasn't actually sure what humans did best, besides survive on their nightmare planet and fight among themselves. We'll find out soon enough. When do they arrive? Their message said 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, the human fleet arrived at Prime, the staging world, waited at the designated coordinates with a small, welcoming committee. He expected to see a few primitive vessels that would need considerable support. What came out of faster-than-light travel made his blood run cold. 47 warships, each one bristling with weapons. The largest vessel, the S Valiant, was 3 times the size of the Council's biggest dreadnought. The fleet moved in perfect formation, disciplined and deadly. And stood beside, his scales turning pale. "That's not a few hundred volunteers," he whispered. "That's an invasion force." Couldn't disagree. Humanity had sent them an army. He just hoped they were ready for what came next. Captain Jake stood on the bridge of the S Valiant and looked at the alien space station growing larger on the. It was beautiful in a strange way, all curved lines and gentle colors, very different from the angular, practical design of human ships. "They're hailing us, sir," said Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "Open a channel." Jake straightened his uniform. First impressions mattered, even with aliens. The changed to show an alien face. The creature had smooth scales, large eyes, and a narrow head. This was Ambassador, according to the briefing files. He looked nervous. "Captain, welcome to Prime. We are grateful for your assistance." The translation came through clearly, though Jake noticed a slight delay. "Happy to help, Ambassador. My crew is ready to begin operations immediately." Seemed surprised by that. "Ah, yes. Well, we should conduct a briefing first. Perhaps you and your senior officers could come aboard our command ship." Agreed. We'll transport over in 1 hour." The channel closed. Commander Ben Hayes walked over to stand beside Jake. Think they expected something smaller. Jake smiled. Definitely. Did you see his face when our fleet came out of FTL? Thought he was going to pass out. Admiral doesn't do things halfway. When Earth commits to something, we commit fully. Let's hope these aliens appreciate that. 1 hour later, Jake and Ben materialized aboard the Council command ship. The transport technology was smooth, much better than Earth's early systems. Another alien stood waiting for them. This one was taller, with 4 eyes and darker scales. I am military coordinator N. Please follow me to the briefing room. They walked through corridors that felt too wide and too quiet. Human ships were always full of noise and activity. This place felt empty by comparison. The briefing room was large, with a central table that displayed a three-dimensional star map. Was already there, along with several other aliens from different species. They all stared at Jake and Ben with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Please sit, gestured to chairs that were clearly not designed for human proportions. Jake and Ben sat anyway, trying not to look uncomfortable. N activated the star map. Red markers showed the swarm's advance. Blue markers showed Council defensive positions. There were far more red than blue. The then swarm has taken 12 systems in 3 months, N began. Our current strategy is to hold key systems while evacuating civilian populations. We rotate fleet units to prevent exhaustion and maintain defensive lines at these. He highlighted several systems on the map. We're planning to assign your forces to secondary defensive positions here, here, and here. These systems have already been evacuated, so your role would be to delay any swarm forces while our main fleets regroup. Jake studied the map carefully. Ben was doing the same, his tactical mind already analyzing the situation. Finally, Jake spoke. With respect, sir, we didn't come here to lose slowly. The room went quiet. Several aliens exchanged confused looks. I don't understand, said carefully. Your strategy is purely defensive. You're reacting to the swarm's movements instead of dictating the battle. Jake stood up and pointed at the map. Where's their main fleet? Their supply lines? Their command structure? N's 4 eyes blinked slowly. Captain, we don't conduct offensive operations during active defense. That's not how civilized warfare works. Civilized warfare. Ben couldn't help but speak up. There's nothing civilized about letting millions of your people die while you wait for the enemy to make mistakes. Held up a hand. Please let me explain. In council space, military conflicts are carefully managed. We avoid unnecessary casualties. We don't target civilian infrastructure. We certainly don't launch aggressive operations that could escalate violence. Jake sat back down. Ambassador, the swarm isn't following your rules. They're consuming everything. You can't negotiate with them. You can't wait them out. The only way to stop them is to destroy their ability to make war. That would require attacking their breeding worlds, N said, his voice shocked. That's genocide. That's monstrous. War is monstrous, Jake replied quietly. That's exactly why you need to win it as fast as possible. Every day you spend on defense is another day the swarm gets stronger and more of your people die. Kears Ha, one of the council members, leaned forward. Are you saying you want to attack the swarm directly? To seek out battle rather than avoid it? That's exactly what I'm saying. Admiral sent us here to win this war, not to manage it. The aliens looked at each other in disbelief. Ben pulled out a data pad and connected it to their display system. We've analyzed your tactical reports. You've been fighting for 3 months and haven't launched a single offensive operation. Every battle has been you responding to their attacks. The star map changed to show Ben's analysis. The swarm has 3 main logistics hubs here, here, and here. They're using these systems to stage their attacks. If we take out these hubs, we cut off their supply lines and force them to retreat. You want to attack 3 systems simultaneously. N couldn't believe what he was hearing. That's impossible. We don't have the forces. Oh, you do now, Jake said simply. The human fleet can handle it. Stood up, clearly agitated. Captain, I appreciate your confidence, but you don't understand the scale of what you're suggesting. Each of those systems has thousands of swarm vessels. Your 47 ships, no matter how advanced, cannot possibly. Ambassador, human ships are built different. Jake's voice was calm but firm. We come from a world where everything tries to kill you. Our ships reflect that. They're tougher, better armed and crewed by people who know how to fight. But the casualties, Kirsha protested. Aggressive tactics mean higher losses. We can't afford to throw away lives on risky operations. Ben looked at her steadily. With respect, ma'am, you're already losing people. Lots of them. The difference is we're offering you a chance to stop losing. The briefing room fell into uncomfortable silence. The council officers didn't know how to respond. Everything the humans were saying went against centuries of military doctrine. Warfare in civilized space was supposed to be careful, measured, and defensive. You didn't seek out battle. You certainly didn't talk about offensive operations with such casual confidence. Finally spoke. Captain, I need to consult with the full council about this. Your approach is very different from what we anticipated. Take your time, Ambassador. But while you're deciding, the swarm isn't waiting. Jake stood up. My fleet is ready to deploy whenever you give the word. Just point us at the enemy. After the humans left and turned to, they're insane. Attacking 3 systems with 47 ships. It's suicide. Maybe, said slowly. Or maybe we've been thinking about this war all wrong. We asked for help. We shouldn't be surprised when they fight like. Back on the Valiant, Jake called a meeting with his senior officers. Commander Ben Hayes, Lieutenant Park, and the ship's tactical officer Lieutenant Nash gathered in the conference room. They're not going to approve offensive operations, Ben said. At least not right away. It goes against everything they believe about warfare. Then we need to show them what we can do, Jake replied. What's the nearest swarm target? Pulled up a tactical display. There's a small raiding group hitting a mining colony in the Delta sector. Maybe 20 swarm vessels. The council has written off the colony as lost. Perfect. How long to get there? 4 hours at maximum speed. Jake nodded. Set course. We're going to save that colony whether the council approves or not. Once they see what human ships can do, they'll change their minds. He looked worried. Sir, if we go without authorization, we could lose our position with the council. We could, Jake agreed. But if we sit here while people die, I couldn't live with myself. The Valiant didn't come all this way to watch from the sidelines. Ben smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The crew is ready, sir. Let's show these aliens how Earth fights. 4 hours later, the Valiant dropped out of FTL near the mining colony. The scene was chaos. 20 swarm vessels surrounded the station, tearing it apart. Small escape pods fled in all directions, but the swarm ships were hunting them down one by one. All weapons online, reported. Target solutions locked. Jake leaned forward in his chair. This is the S-Valiant to all swarm vessels. Leave now or be destroyed. The swarm didn't respond. They never did. They just turned their ships toward the Valiant and attacked. Here they come, Ben said calmly. Ready. Jake smiled. Fire at will. The Valiants opened fire. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, tore through the swarm ships like they were made of paper. 3 vessels exploded in the first salvo. The others scattered, trying to surround the human ship. They're attempting a pincer formation, reported from Tactical. 8 ships closing from port side, 9 from starboard. Let them come, Jake said calmly. Show them what our armor can do. The swarm vessels opened fire with their bioweapons. Acidic projectiles and plasma bursts hit the Valiant's hull. On a council ship, those hits would have been devastating. On the Valiant, they barely scorched the paint. Shields at 92%, Ben called out. Minor damage to outer hull plating on decks 4 and 5. Nothing serious. Jake allowed himself a small smile. Human ships were built to survive. When you're tried to kill you every day, you learned to build things that lasted. Target the closest 8 ships. Full spread. The Valiant's missile tubes launched. Dozens of warheads streaked toward the swarm vessels. Half were kinetic, designed to punch through armor. The other half were high explosive, meant to shred anything that survived the first hit. The combination was lethal. 6 more swarm ships disappeared in balls of fire and debris. The remaining swarm vessels broke formation and tried to flee. They were fast, but not fast enough. Don't let them escape, Jake ordered. Target their engines. Lieutenant Park spoke up from communications. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the mining station. They're asking if we're really human. Tell them yes, and that they're safe now. How many escape pods are still out there? Scanning now, replied. I count 43 pods, all within recovery range. Begin retrieval operations. Ben, how long until we can clear this area? Ben checked his screens. 20 minutes to finish off the remaining swarm ships. Another hour to collect all the escape pods. Make it happen. 3-star systems away, Captain Amy commanded the S. She was younger than Jake, only 37, but she had proven herself in 2 previous conflicts. Her ship was smaller than the Valiant, but just as deadly. Admiral Lisa had given her a different mission. While Jake demonstrated human capabilities at the mining colony, Amy would hit one of the swarm's supply depots. The Council didn't need to authorize it. Earth's military command had already made the decision to fight aggressively. Coming up on the target system now, her navigator reported. Multiple swarm vessels detected. Count is at 46. Amy studied the tactical display. The supply depot was a large station surrounded by defense platforms and patrol ships. The Council had tried to attack it once before and lost half their fleet. That's why they now considered it impossible to take. Amy disagreed with that assessment. All hands to battle stations. Nash, you listening? She smiled. Lieutenant Nash was actually aboard the Not the Valiant. Different officer, same name, pure coincidence. Yes, ma'am. Weapons ready. Good, we're going straight in. Full speed, maximum firepower. Don't stop shooting until everything that can shoot back is destroyed. Her crew didn't hesitate. They knew their captain and they trusted her judgment. They accelerated toward the depot, weapons charging. The swarm responded immediately. Defense platforms opened fire. Patrol ships moved to intercept. It looked like certain death for a single vessel. But there wasn't just any vessel. It was a human warship, built by a species that learned warfare through necessity and perfected it through practice. And Amy's ship took hits, lots of them. The shields flickered and failed. Hull plating cracked and melted. On a council ship, the crew would be dead already. Hull breach on deck 7, her damage control officer reported calmly. Sealing now. Weapons still operational. Minor casualties in sections 9 through 12. The medical officer added. Nothing critical. Amy nodded. Human damage control teams were the best in the known galaxy because they had to be. When your ships got hit, they didn't just survive, they kept fighting. Return fire, all weapons. The guns sang. Missile tubes, energy weapons, everything fired at once. The supply depot's shields collapsed under the assault. 3 defense platforms exploded. Then 5 more. The patrol ships tried to pull back, but Amy wasn't letting them escape. Target the station's reactor. Maximum yield. A single missile, carrying a fusion warhead, penetrated the depot's defenses and detonated inside the reactor core. The resulting explosion could be seen from 3 planets away. Back at Prime, Ambassador was in an emergency meeting when the reports started coming in. First, news of the mining colony rescue. 20 swarm vessels destroyed by a single human ship. All survivors recovered. Before he could process that, more news arrived. The supply depot in the system had been destroyed. Captain's ship had taken heavy damage but was already conducting repairs. Her crew reported 16 injured, 0 dead. N stared at the reports in disbelief. One ship. She took out a fortified depot with one ship. We lost 30 vessels trying that same operation 2 months ago. Perhaps we should have brought heavier ships, Kirsha suggested weakly. It's not the ships, said slowly. It's the people crewing them. These humans don't fight the way we do. They don't calculate acceptable losses or withdraw when things get dangerous. They just keep pushing forward. That's insane, N protested. Brave, yes, but insane. Maybe, but it's working. Meanwhile, Colonel was preparing for a different kind of battle. While the ships fought in space, the swarm had ground forces on several captured worlds. The Council had written these planets off as lost. Admiral disagreed. Was a Marine, 41 years old, with 20 years of combat experience. He had fought in jungles, deserts, mountains, and urban environments. Fighting on alien planets wouldn't be much different. His transport ship, carrying 500 Marines, approached the planet 3. The swarm had taken it 4 weeks ago. According to Council intelligence, there were still 10,000 civilians hiding in underground bunkers, waiting for rescue that would never come. 5 minutes to drop, the pilot announced. Checked his gear one last time. His Marines were doing the same. They wore powered armor, carried advanced weapons, and had trained for this exact scenario. The only difference was that their enemy wasn't human this time. Listen up, addressed his troops over the comm system. Council reports say the swarm warriors are tough. 2 meters tall, armored exoskeletons, acid blood, nasty claws. They want you to be scared. He paused for effect. But here's what they don't know. We're from Earth. We evolved fighting creatures just as dangerous. Bears, tigers, crocodiles, each other. These bugs are just another predator, and we've been dealing with predators for millions of years. The Marines cheered, not because they weren't afraid, but because fear was familiar. Fear was something you pushed through. The transport hit atmosphere. Defense fire came up from the surface, but the human ship's armor held. Drop pods launched, each carrying 10 Marines. They fell like meteors burning through the sky. This pod hit the ground hard. The hatch blew open and he rolled out, weapon ready. Around him, the other pods were landing. Within 30 seconds, 500 Marines were on the ground and moving. The swarm was waiting for them. The first warrior came around a corner at full speed. It was exactly as described. Huge, armored, terrifying. It screeched and charged at with claws extended. Shot it 3 times in the center mass. The warrior stumbled but kept coming. Acid blood sprayed from its wounds. Shot it twice more, this time in the head. It fell. They can take a hit, he reported over the comm. Aim for the head or use sustained fire. Move in teams, cover each other. More swarm warriors appeared. The Marines opened fire. The sound of gunfire echoed through the ruined city. The swarm had numbers and biological advantages. The Marines had training, tactics, and weapons designed to kill efficiently. Sergeant led her squad through a collapsed building. They found a group of 30 swarm warriors feeding on what looked like livestock. Didn't hesitate. Grenades, then follow up with suppressive fire. Her squad threw 4 grenades simultaneously. The explosions tore through the swarm warriors. The survivors tried to counterattack, but ran straight into concentrated fire from 5 different angles. None of them made it more than 10 meters. A building clear. Moving to next objective. Private Dan Perry was 19 years old, and this was his first real combat situation. He was terrified. But when a swarm warrior came at him from the shadows, His training took over. He fired his weapon, watched the creature fall, and kept moving. "You okay, Perry?" his squad leader asked. "Yeah, Sarge, just adrenaline." That's normal. Keep your head clear and stay with the squad." The battle lasted 4 hours. 500 Marines fought through 3,000 swarm warriors to reach the civilian bunkers. When they opened the first bunker, exhausted and wounded civilians stared at them in shock. "We're from Earth," told them. "We're here to get you out." One of the civilians, an elderly, looked at his armor, which was covered in acid burns and swarm blood. "You fought through the swarm. They said rescue was impossible." Smiled tiredly. "Yeah, well, nobody told us that." The Marines evacuated all 10,000 civilians over the next 6 hours. Casualty report was 3 dead, 41 wounded. Considering they had fought through 3,000 swarm warriors, those numbers were impossible by council standards. But humans didn't fight by council standards. Back on the Valiant, Jake received reports from all over the human fleet. Every engagement was a success. Every mission accomplished. 0 ships lost. The casualty rates were a fraction of what the Council experienced in similar operations. "Think they're starting to understand?" Ben asked. Jake watched the tactical display showing the positions of all human vessels. "They're about to. Admiral is calling a meeting with the full council tomorrow. Time to show them what we can really do." The emergency council session convened on the main station at Prime. Representatives from every member species filled the chamber. They had all seen the reports. Impossible victories. Minimal casualties. Aggressive tactics that shouldn't have worked but did. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Lisa. She was 51 years old, with short gray hair and steady brown eyes that had seen 3 decades of military service. She wore her uniform without decoration or flair. The results spoke for themselves. Admiral began carefully. "We need to discuss your fleet's recent operations." "Of course, Ambassador." A holographic display activated, showing data from the past week. N spoke, his four eyes moving rapidly as he read. 23 engagements, all victories. You've destroyed more swarm vessels in 7 days than the Council managed in 3 months. We came here to fight, Lisa replied simply. Yes, but your methods. Kirsha stood up, her scales flushed with emotion. You attacked a supply depot without authorization. You assaulted a fortified position with a single ship. You landed troops on a planet we had declared lost. These are not defensive operations. No, they're not. They're winning operations. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Some council members were angry, others were confused. A few seemed almost impressed, called for order. Admiral, you must understand our concern. The Council operates under strict rules of engagement. We minimize civilian casualties. We avoid unnecessary destruction. We certainly don't attack breeding worlds or civilian infrastructure. I've read your rules of engagement, Lisa said. Very civilized, very careful, also very ineffective against an enemy that doesn't follow those same rules. So you're suggesting we abandon our principles? N's voice was sharp. I'm suggesting you win the war first, then rebuild your principles after. Right now, millions of your people are dying because you're too worried about appearing civilized. The chamber went quiet. That statement hit hard. The council prided itself on being better than the violence and chaos that plagued primitive species. But that pride was costing them everything. A new voice spoke up. Commander Watson, one of Lisa's senior officers, had been standing quietly at the back. Now she stepped forward with a data pad. May I present some statistics? She didn't wait for permission. The holographic display changed to show casualty reports. In 3 months of Council defensive operations, you've lost approximately 620,000 military personnel and 4 million civilians. In 1 week of human offensive operations, we've lost 43 soldiers and 0 civilians. We've also liberated 3 occupied systems and rescued more than 30,000 civilians that you had written off as lost. The numbers were undeniable. Kirsha sat down slowly, looking at the data with wide eyes. But the cost to the swarm, she said quietly. You've killed millions of them. Their breeding worlds, their supply systems. This is genocide. This is war, Lisa replied. The swarm isn't going to negotiate with you. They're not going to stop because you ask nicely. They will consume every system you have unless someone stops them permanently. So we should become monsters to fight monsters? Asked. There was genuine pain in his voice. Lisa walked closer to the council members. Her voice softened but remained firm. Ambassador, I understand your position. Earth has fought 17 major wars in the last century alone. We know exactly how terrible war is. We've seen what violence does to people, to cultures, to entire generations. She paused, looking around the chamber. That's precisely why we fight to end it as quickly as possible. Every day this war continues is another day your people suffer. Every defensive line you hold is another system that might fall tomorrow. You want to be civilized. Then win the war and stop the dying. N stood up again. And what about after? When the swarm is defeated? Will you return to your own space, or will you decide that our peaceful ways are too weak? Will you decide to rule the council yourselves? The chamber tensed. That was the real fear, Lisa realized. They weren't just afraid of human tactics. They were afraid of humans. We don't want to rule anyone, Lisa said quietly. We're here because you asked for help. When the job is done, we'll go home. But right now, the job isn't done. Ben Hayes, who had been standing beside Jake at the side of the chamber, added his voice. The council has a choice. You can keep fighting your careful, measured war and lose everything over the next few months. Or you can let us help you win and deal with the moral complexity later. Easy for you to say, Kirsha responded. You're not the ones compromising centuries of ethical development. No, Jake spoke up. We're the ones who compromised our ethics centuries ago and learned to live with the consequences. You think Earth is united now. We fought each other for thousands of years. Wars, genocides, atrocities that would horrify you. But we learned from it. We became better. You can too, but first you have to survive. The debate continued for hours. Some council members absolutely refused to authorize aggressive operations. Others saw the logic but couldn't bring themselves to support it. The chamber was divided almost equally. Finally, called for a vote. All those in favor of granting Admiral operational freedom to conduct the war as she sees fit. The vote was close. 21 in favor, 19 opposed. It was enough. Admiral, you have authorization for offensive operations. But understand this. The Council will be watching. If your methods become too extreme, we will revoke this authorization. Understood, Ambassador. As the meeting ended and the chamber emptied, approached Lisa privately. Admiral, may I speak with you alone? They walked to an observation deck overlooking the fleet. Human ships and council vessels floated together in space, so different in design and purpose. I'm not sure we made the right decision, said quietly. You're not sure because you've never had to make this kind of decision before, Lisa replied. The council has been at peace for so long. You've forgotten what real war looks like. And you remember too well. That's why I know this is necessary. The scales shifted color, a sign of deep emotion. We asked for help from. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised when they fight like. But I wonder what this will do to the Council. How can we return to our principles after embracing such violence? Lisa was quiet for a moment. Ambassador, can I tell you something about Earth? 200 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, environmental collapse. We came very close to extinction. I've read the reports. It's one reason we quarantined you. Right, but here's what those reports don't say. We survived because we chose to. We looked at what we were doing and decided to be better. We built alliances, shared resources, solved problems together. It wasn't easy and it wasn't quick, but we did it. She turned to face him directly. The violence in our past doesn't define us. What defines us is what we chose to do after. The Council can do the same. Win this war, then rebuild your civilization even stronger than before. But you have to survive first. Consider this. You truly believe we can return to our principles after this? I believe you have to try. Otherwise, the swarm wins even if you defeat them. Back aboard the Valiant, Jake gathered his senior officers for a briefing. Admiral had sent new orders. The human fleet would split into 3 battle groups and hit the swarm's main staging areas simultaneously. This is it, Jake told his crew. The big push. Admiral wants to break the swarm's ability to coordinate attacks. Once we take out their central command structures, they'll fragment into smaller groups that the Council can handle. How many swarm vessels are we talking about? Asked. Each staging area has between 500 and 800 ships. We're sending roughly 15 human ships to each location, supported by Council forces. Ben whistled softly. That's aggressive even for us. That's the point. Hit them hard, hit them fast, don't give them time to respond. It's a gamble, but if it works, we could end this war in less than a month. She spoke up, and if it doesn't work? Jake was honest with her. Then we'll lose a lot of good people. But doing nothing means watching the Council fall and billions of civilians die. I'll take the gamble. The crew nodded. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. Being from Earth meant understanding that sometimes the only way through danger was straight ahead. Get some rest, Jake ordered. We move out in 12 hours. And remember, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every species in this galaxy that can't fight for themselves. Lieutenant Nash returned to his station and began running final diagnostics on the weapon systems. Next to him, prepared communication protocols. Ben coordinated with the engineering teams. Everyone had a job. Everyone knew their role. On the hangar deck, Colonel supervised the loading of additional Marine units. If the fleet was going to hit the swarm's main bases, they would need ground forces to secure objectives. Think the aliens will ever understand us? One of his sergeants asked. Shrugged. Don't know, don't really care. We're not here to be understood. We're here to win. Yes, sir. Throughout the human fleet, 47 ships prepared for the largest offensive operation in Council history. Crews checked weapons. Engineers reinforced shields and commanders reviewed battle plans. They knew the odds. They knew the risks. They also knew they were human, and humans didn't quit. The three human battle groups dropped out of faster-than-light travel simultaneously. Across 3 different star systems, 15 human ships appeared in each location, ready to fight. Supporting them were council vessels that had finally learned to use more aggressive tactics. Captain Jake stood on the bridge of the Valiant as his sensors registered the enemy. 812 swarm vessels surrounded a massive station that served as their command hub for this sector. That's a lot of targets, Ben observed calmly. Good thing we brought enough bullets. Jake opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships engage at will. Remember your training and watch each other's backs. Let's finish this. The battle began. The swarm reacted quickly, their ships swarming toward the human vessels like angry insects. But the human formation didn't break. Years of training and combat experience had taught them how to fight together, how to support each other, how to turn individual ships into a single deadly weapon. The Valiants fired continuously. Each shot took less than a second to cross the distance and hit its target. Swarm ships exploded in rapid succession. Worked his tactical station like a musician, orchestrating destruction with precise timing. Multiple hits on forward shields, he reported, holding at 70%. Return fire, target their capital ships. A massive swarm vessel, 3 times the size of the Valiant, loomed ahead. It was covered in biological weapons and protected by dozens of smaller escort ships. The Council had tried to destroy one of these command ships before and failed. It took them 40 vessels and they still couldn't crack its defenses. Jake studied it for 5 seconds. Full missile spread. I want that thing gone. Yes, sir. 30 missiles launched from the Valiant's tubes. They wove through the defensive fire, their guidance systems adjusting trajectory in real time. Half were intercepted. 15 made it through and detonated against the command ship's hull. The giant vessel shuddered but didn't fall. Its shields regenerated quickly, biological tissue sealing breaches almost as fast as they appeared. Tough, Ben commented. Yeah, let's try something bigger. Prepare the main cannon. The Valiant had one weapon that wasn't standard on Council ships. A particle beam cannon that ran the entire length of the vessel. It took 30 seconds to charge and consumed enough power to light a small city for a year. But when it fired, nothing survived. Charging now, 20 seconds. The swarm seemed to sense the danger. Every nearby vessel turned toward the Valiant and opened fire. The human ship's shields flared under the assault, flickering and failing in several sections. Hull plating cracked. Alarms blared across multiple decks. Shields down to 40%, Ben reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. Minor breaches on decks 3, 7, and 9. Damage control teams responding. 10 seconds, counted down. A swarm vessel rammed directly into the Valiant's side. The impact sent crew members sprawling. Emergency lights flickered. Grabbed her console to keep from falling. 5 seconds. Fire when ready, Jake ordered. The particle beam lanced out, a line of pure energy that crossed the space between the Valiant and the command ship in an instant. The beam punched through the shields, through the biological armor, through the internal structure, and out the other side. The massive swarm vessel split in half and exploded. Target destroyed, confirmed. Around them, the rest of the human fleet was equally effective. Captain Amy danced through enemy fire, its weapons never silent. Her ship had taken heavy damage, but her crew kept fighting. They sealed breaches, rerouted power, and maintained fire even when half the ship was depressurized. Amy's requesting support, reported. She's got 15 swarm ships on her position. Send her the Lexington and the Aurora. Tell them to clear a path. Two human destroyers broke formation and accelerated toward their combined firepower carved through the swarm vessels in minutes. Amy sent back a quick thanks and immediately rejoined the main battle. In the other two systems, similar battles raged. The human fleets fought with precision and determination. They took damage, yes. Ships were hurt, people were wounded. But they didn't break. They didn't retreat. They just kept pushing forward. Colonel's Marines boarded the central swarm station in his sector. Fighting in zero gravity against creatures designed for it was challenging. But humans adapted quickly. They used their armor's magnetic boots for stability and their weapons' recoil for movement. Section C is clear, Sergeant reported. Moving to the reactor level. Copy that. Stay together and watch for ambushes. The Marines fought through corridors designed for creatures twice their size. Swarm warriors dropped from ceiling vents and emerged from side passages. Each time, the Marines responded with practiced efficiency. They moved in teams, covered each other, and never stopped advancing. Private Dan Perry had stopped being afraid after the first hour. Now he was just focused. Aim, fire, move, repeat. His squad leader had taught him well. They reached the reactor core and planted demolition charges. Timer set for 5 minutes, announced. Everyone out now. The Marines extracted quickly, fighting their way back to the shuttle bay. Behind them, the charges detonated. The station's power failed, its weapons went dark, and its shields collapsed. The swarm vessels in orbit lost their coordination center. Back in space, Jake watched the tactical display as the swarm's defense began to crumble. Without their command ships and coordination, the individual vessels fought independently. They were still dangerous, but no longer overwhelming. Admiral is reporting success in her sector, called out. Both other battle groups are achieving their objectives. Oh, good, let's finish this. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the human fleet had destroyed over 2,000 swarm vessels and eliminated all 3 command centers. Human casualties were significant but far lower than expected. 8 ships heavily damaged, 2 destroyed, 437 personnel dead, over 1,000 wounded. By Council standards, those numbers would have been considered light losses for a minor skirmish. For an operation of this scale, they were miraculous. Admiral Lisa surveyed the aftermath from her flagship. The battle had been won, but the war wasn't over. The swarm still had forces in a dozen systems. However, without their central command structure, they were disorganized and vulnerable. Admiral, the Council is requesting a meeting, her communications officer announced. Tell them I'll be there in 2 hours. The meeting took place on Prime again. This time, the atmosphere was different. The council members looked at Admiral with a mixture of respect and lingering discomfort. Spoke first. Admiral, your victory was extraordinary. Our analysts are still trying to understand how you achieved such results with relatively small forces. Training, tactics, and determination, Lisa replied. Also, we build our ships to take punishment and keep fighting. Yes, we've noticed. In displayed damage reports from human vessels. Your ship captain sustained damage that should have destroyed them, yet they continued to fight. How? Redundancy. Every critical system has a backup. Every backup has a backup for the backup. When you come from a world where everything tries to kill you, you learn not to put all your trust in one system. Kirsha stood up, her scales showing colors that indicated deep thought. Admiral, I owe you an apology. I doubted your methods. I thought your aggressive approach would lead to disaster. I was wrong. You weren't entirely wrong, Lisa said honestly. Our methods are brutal. We did destroy swarm infrastructure that included civilian elements. We did push our people to their limits and beyond. These aren't things to be proud of. They're things we did because we had to. But they worked, said quietly. They worked. Now the question is what happens next? The council conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, addressed the chamber. The swarm is broken but not destroyed. Our fleets are learning from your tactics and can now handle the remaining forces. We estimate the war will be over in 6 weeks. That's good news, Lisa said. Yes. Which brings us to the matter of Earth's position in the galaxy. Gestured and a holographic document appeared. The Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership, a seat at this table, access to our technology, protection under galactic law, and the right to participate in all council decisions. Lisa read through the document carefully. It was generous, far more than Earth had expected when they agreed to help. What's the catch? No catch, Kirsha said. But understand that membership comes with responsibilities. You'll be expected to follow council law, respect diplomatic protocols, and work within our system of governance. And if another threat emerges, another war, ends 4 eyes fixed on Lisa. Then we'll call on you again. But this time we'll know exactly what we're asking for. Lisa considered it. Earth had sent the fleet to help, yes, but also to prove humanity belonged in the galactic community. They had certainly done that. The question was whether joining the council would change Earth or Earth would change the council. Probably both, she decided. I'll need to present this to my government, but I believe Earth will accept. Excellent. Stood and approached Lysa, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting he had learned. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Admiral. I hope we never need your fleet in combat again, but I'm grateful we have it if we do." They shook hands. Around the chamber, council members applauded uncertainly. They were welcoming humanity, but they were also acknowledging what humanity represented: the capacity for violence, the willingness to fight, and the understanding that sometimes civilization needed teeth. Days later, Jake sat in the mess hall of the Valiant with Ben Hayes and Nash. They were eating Earth food, real food shipped all the way from home. It tasted incredible after weeks of recycled rations. "I think we'll get to go home soon?" asked. Eventually," Jake said. "First, we need to help the council mop up the remaining swarm forces. Show them how to properly secure a victory." "They're learning," Ben observed. "Saw a fleet use a pincer maneuver yesterday. Aggressive tactics, solid execution. They're starting to get it." Good. Maybe we won't need to keep doing their fighting for them." Joined them carrying her own tray. "Just got word from Admiral. Earth's government accepted the council membership. We're officially part of the galactic community now." Jake said. "Guess we're not quarantined anymore." "Nope. Now we're the scary neighbors everyone's polite to." They all laughed. It was true. The council respected humanity now, but they were also cautious. Earth had proven it could fight, and that made them dangerous. But it also made them valuable. "You know what's funny?" Ben said. "We came here thinking we'd have to prove ourselves worthy of joining the council. Turns out they needed us more than we needed them." "Maybe," Jake replied. "Or maybe we both needed each other. They needed someone who could fight. We needed someone to fight for. Worked out pretty well." Throughout the human fleet, similar conversations were happening. Crews celebrated their victories, mourned their losses, and wondered what came next. They had changed the galaxy, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. Admiral Lisa stood alone on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere, home to billions of people who would now have a voice in galactic affairs. It was a huge responsibility. Commander Watson joined her. "Penny for your thoughts, Admiral. Just thinking about what we've started. The Council will never be the same after this." "Is that bad?" "I don't know yet. We taught them that sometimes you need to fight hard and fight to win. But we also showed them that winning comes with a cost. They'll have to figure out how to balance those lessons." "And us, what did we learn?" Lisa smiled slightly. "That even can be heroes. We just do it differently than everyone else." The war ended 5 weeks later. The Swarm's remaining forces were hunted down and eliminated. The Council fleets, using tactics learned from humans, fought with new confidence and effectiveness. Civilians returned to their worlds. Reconstruction began. Earth's fleet prepared to return home. They had been gone for 3 months and had fundamentally changed galactic politics. Humanity was no longer the quarantined primitive species. They were council members, allies, and the galaxy's new defenders. The fleet wasn't the help the aliens anticipated when they sent their desperate message. They expected a few volunteers, maybe some cannon fodder to slow down the swarm. What they got was a force that didn't just fight, but won. They got soldiers who understood that war was terrible, and that's exactly why you ended it as quickly as possible. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again, and Earth would never look at itself the same way either. They had found their place among the stars, and it was exactly where they belonged, standing between civilization and chaos, ready to fight when needed, but always hopping for peace. As the human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home, Jake had one final thought. The Council had asked for help. Humanity had delivered, and in doing so, they had proven that sometimes the best guardians of civilization are those who truly understand what it costs to defend it.